Hey y'all, welcome to the Honesty Circle, the safe space for heart to heart conversations rooted in faith, discussing mental health, navigating adulthood, and all the things in between. It's your host, Sierra Elise, and I hope you're taking care of not only your mental and spiritual, but your emotional and physical health so you can be your best self this week. Hey y'all, welcome back to the episode of the Honesty Circle. It's your host, Sierra Elise. How are y'all doing? I hope you're doing well. Remember that God loves you. And since God loves you, I love you too. And before we hop into the episode, let's handle some business. Make sure that you are following us wherever you are either listening or watching this episode. And also follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And yeah, let's get into the episode. So today we are going to be talking about community. Basically, like, what is it, how it changes, because we are adults now, how we can find it, how we can grow it, just all the things that come with community. And so we all know adulthood, and not just adulthood in general. I think that adulthood has always been some form of isolation. I would say, like, and I say that throughout like history, right? So as you grow to be an adult and then you like move away from home and then all of these kind of things that come with adulthood. But I think another part that makes it even more difficult is now that we live in this like digital age where people are connecting less. We also had COVID, all of these factors that play into a not good or good community, or just like sense of like belonging and like connectivity and all the things that come and with having community. And it's really important and to know that honestly community is defined differently for everyone, right? So I'm gonna kind of talk through like some things that maybe you didn't think about our community, but they are, but then also remind you that even if I don't say it, doesn't mean that you don't have that community, because really community is that sense of connection and belonging and purpose that comes with connecting with other people. And it can be based off of a plethora of things. And so I want to just kind of go through that because one thing I realized, and I've had to really rework how I think about community as I've gotten older. Because yes, it's more isolating, but then I realized I'm like, I still have the same people, even if they're not in the same proximity. And so I then have to just like reframe, okay, how do I see community? How do I connect with my community so that way I feel still connected to them, even if it's different than what it was previously? But then also really like, for me, it's I don't know, it's community is such a pivotal part, and I think that I not neglected it, but didn't put like actual value on it in the sense of like community. I just saw like friends, cool friends, but like that sense of community is like, I would say the difference is I feel like friends, yes, you can have friends, right? But I think friends, like, you have fun with friends. I feel like when I think of community, I think of like doing life, building together. I think of, like I said, purpose. I think of things that, yeah, like those things that really make, I would say, differentiate like just like a friend versus like people that you are in community with. Who are you kind of growing with? Who are you building with? Who are you, navigating this crazy life with, So yeah, let's hop into, so when you think about community, what do you think about? I wrote down a few types. So you have like that community that obviously, as I said, talked about the digital age. So we have like that digital community with social media, online groups. And I think that's something that we sometimes think about. And while it doesn't feel always the most, I would say, space for connectivity, doesn't mean that it's not a place where you can still find that sense of community. Because like, I mean, especially with like Zoom, with so many things that happen now, like going on live, like there's so many things, so many reasons or so many new avenues that you can find community within a digital space. Obviously the more generic way is with the physical space. And so people think about, like I said, more generic things are like your friends and your family and neighbors. But outside of that, you still have things such as like your church family and community. You have maybe if you go to a specific workout class, that's a specific community. If you're in any support groups, like any group therapy or professional networks, those are a great way. Like I also like speaking of professional network, I have some great women, some great Black women that I was able to connect with because of a conference. And it really started, I met one girl and her coworker the first year we went to the conference, and then we met some other older women who one became our mentor, and then she has like her group of I guess like her close friends, I would say, and then they also became a group. So it's like a group of Black women who believe in God in the same profession. Like it's like, oh, it's such a great time every time we like have our moments where we like we did a Zoom one time. We met at the conference, and we've like planned another one too. So like just that, like it's just so it's so amazing. It feels so good to find those sense of community. And so, like I said before, like how do you think of community? Like what is community to you? Because how I define it, what my community looks like, is not, I guess, like the norm. It's not necessarily everyone's definition or everyone's thoughts of community. And so I want you to really take the time to think about your community. And I would say, how do you know, like I said, how do you know it's community? While it's the sense of like purpose and connectivity, I think another part of it too is like that support. Like who can you rely on? Who can you lean on? And that kind of just talks about why we need it. Like, why do we need community, right? We are not supposed to do this life alone. And no matter what anyone tells you, whether you like your time to be alone or not, community is important. And I think that sometimes we get in this, I see this on social media all the time of like, oh, like I'm just like a loner, or I just like to be in my house by myself, all those things. And yes, that can be true. Like community is not just for the extroverts. Community is not just for people who like to be not in the house all the time. Community is for everyone. Like I said, community is for everyone. Just because you define it differently than the other person doesn't mean that you don't need community. Just because you like to be at home sometimes does not mean that you don't need community. Everyone needs community. And why is that? So we need community for multiple reasons. We need community for, like I said, support, right? Like who can you lean on when you need something? Who can you kind of bounce ideas off of because they hold similar values to you? Who can you just have a good time with as well? Who can you enjoy that space? And who really like understands you too? Because a part of a community is, while we enjoy each other, while I can lean on you and all of this stuff, you understand me in a way that most people do not. And that's why it also is different, because each community group is different. Like the group, like I said, the professional kind of community that I've built, they understand the work side. The community that I had from college, they don't even, like, they understand what I do for work and they know, but they don't experience it, they don't live it. And so they don't have that firsthand knowledge of my like career in comparison to someone else in this professional group. So each community that you have gets you in a probably different way, but they get you nonetheless, and it helps you feel seen, heard, connected. It's a judgment-free zone where you can be just authentically yourself, right? We want to be able to be ourselves where we are. Another thing that community does is help us grow. You are being held accountable. You are learning through other people's experiences, because it's not always am I learning because you told me, but I'm also learning because maybe I'm hearing something that you've gone through or something that you've done, and now I'm like, oh, okay. Also, just like there's so many things that I feel like you can learn within community, because it's not just about yourself. You learn about other people. You can learn about the world, because we all go through the world in different ways. And so hearing about other people's experiences allows you to understand more perspectives of the world. And so you don't just see it through that one lens. And thinking about, like I said, go back to accountability, community really is a mirror. It's a mirror. I mean, people say that about relationships, romantic relationships, but it literally is a mirror. You're able to get reflected back. What areas do I need to work on? What maybe triggers am I having? What, where am I needing to learn more and be more knowledgeable in a certain area? But that only comes if it's true community. Like I said, the difference between a friend and community, or just an acquaintance and things like that, is what is bringing you guys together and how are you guys building life. And when you're building life, that comes with growth in that aspect. Another good part, one of my favorite parts about community, is you get to celebrate together. There's so many things you can celebrate, whether it's your own personal successes, whether it's other people's successes, whether that is just like life in general. Like, life is worth celebrating. And when you have really good community, you're able to celebrate life. One thing I do also want to note is that there are times where you can bring your communities together, okay? I know people are always saying that you can't bring your groups together, but I do believe that it's possible. For my 25th birthday, I mixed my childhood friends with my current work friends with my college friends. And that truly, 10 out of 10. Oh, and some of my high school friends. Yeah, high school. So I had people that I was in community in different times of my life, but are all still connected with me now in community. And it was great to celebrate together, right? And while I was a common denominator, a lot of them had always also met before, because I bring my friends together often. So yeah, you could celebrate together. And also remember this too, that another way in which I celebrated together in community, where it wasn't necessarily my community, but it was someone who was in my community. My friend, Godwin, she had a like little fall like gathering with watch football, people painting pumpkins, and it was a great time. I only really knew her and one other girl, but all of us were sitting there talking. It was a group of Black women just chit-chatting, having girl time, like 10 out of 10, where that wasn't my community, but it was one person that I was in very close community with and people that she's close with. And like I said, you can mix communities together. It works. It works more than you think. You might be wondering of like, okay, but how do I build it? If I feel like I have no community whatsoever, how am I going to now develop a community? And there's multiple different ways where you can build and develop a community. One I would say is just to start small. I think we always try to think of community as like, getting a friend group of, however many people or whatever. And I think sometimes we just think about it in such a large space that we forget the ways in which we can find community in the places that we exist now, right? So if you are in a church, maybe you just only go to church on Sunday and you don't do anything else. Maybe you can join a small group. Maybe you can become more active in the church. And that's where you can find more people to connect with and find that sense of community. Maybe at the gym that you go to, maybe instead of just doing a random workout, maybe you decide to do a workout class, or maybe you decide to say hi. I know that was a topic on social media too, about, saying hi in the grocery store if you're a worker in the grocery store, and kind of creating small talk in the places that you're out. And I will 1,000% say that is something that's important. That is how you start to connect with the people that you interact with on a regular basis. Even if they're not your immediate community right now, you never know what could come from it. From just a, hey, how are you doing? Asking a question, small things like that. It can be nerve-wracking, but start small. And also in that, you actually also have to be patient. This is something that I am learning. For example, so I joined a church. When did I join this church? I want to say April or March. One of those is when I joined this church. And so I was wanting to make friends ASAP. I'm like, okay, so we're the church friends, but I'm also used to going to, my home church, which I basically knew everybody. It was my parents were the pastors. My god sisters went there. The literal not sisters that I grew up with. Like they're all there. And so I was used to knowing a lot of people and also having that immediate sense of community. And so I was trying to get that community really, really quickly. And I quickly realized where it's like, it takes time to develop those type of relationships. It takes time to just get to know people on a deeper level. And not just on a like hi bye basis, not just on a I follow you on social media basis. And so you really have to be patient, but also I would say be persistent, because if I had decided to stop going to this church because I felt like I wasn't getting community right away, right off the bat, I would not have been able to connect with the people that I'm connected with now. I wouldn't be, I joined the choir. Like I wouldn't be doing those things if I was impatient and just immediately jump ship. So I'm like, oh, it's been 2 Sundays and I don't have friends here yet, so I'm out. So be patient, be open, but also be persistent, because it does take time to develop. And like I said, make sure you're just engaging with the people around you. Just like I said, saying hi. Also ask for social medias. I know I said social media is not the end all be all, but it's a great starting point where it's like, oh my gosh, I see you here all the time. Like, let me get your Instagram or let me get your whatever. If you're comfortable with that, so that way you can start that getting connected with them. You can, if they post, you can maybe message them if you want to, like, oh, you working out today or something? There's small things you can do. And like I said, it can be nerve-wracking. And I know I'm an extrovert. So for me, these things can be very mindless and very like, I just do it off of. But also a part of community is being authentic to yourself, but then also pushing yourself, because you can't want different if you don't do different. Okay. So let's keep that in mind too, when you're trying to build community, because it takes time to develop. It takes time to grow. And another thing too, is I want you to remember the community that you've had before, right? Because I think that sometimes we can think about how we're going to build community, how we're going to build it now. And I've been thinking about. I'm like, oh, how am I going to build my community now that I'm living in this new city, right? How are you going to build it? And I started to neglect the community that I had already established, right? I've already have these great friends that I made in college. And just because it looks different doesn't mean that I can't continue to grow those connections and those relationships as well. I shouldn't stop just because it looks different. And so I think that's another thing too. It's like, how can you make sure that you're still connecting with the people that you are already in community with? Like I know me and one of my friends, we have like a standing FaceTime once a week. And so that's a way that we keep that relationship, going. Some of my friends, texting them every now and then, all the time, FaceTime them randomly. So while you're building new community, don't neglect the people that you're already in community with. Don't neglect your family if you're connected with them. Don't have to neglect your friends that you have had just because they look different than they did in the past. And so I just want us to remember, community is so important. Community is so important. I cannot stress this enough. Community is so important. And I think that as I've gotten older, I always imagine, I always thought about when I was a kid, right? Or when you think about your life when you're as an adult, I'm always thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna live in a healthy neighborhood with my friends and our kids are gonna grow up near each other and all of these things. But it's like, how am I ever gonna get that if I neglect the people that I'm in connection with? How I'm gonna get that if I'm not intentional in growing my community? And also when you think about community too, think also about things that you can do in your physical community, right? Like how can you volunteer? How can you give back to where you are locally? Because that's also another way that you can find a sense of community. I'm in my local NAACP chapter. I was able to connect with so many people through that. And so that's just one example. There's so many other things you can do. But I just want everyone to make sure that either you are intentional of trying to grow your community or also trying to maintain your community, okay? Because you don't have to do this life alone. You don't have to feel that you are alone. Tap into your resources. If you feel like you don't have anybody, if you're listening to this, you have me, period. My DMs are always open. And like I said, I want the Honest Circle to be an online community. So this is a part of that. So I talk about community so much because I know the power in it. And I know that it allows people to feel seen, heard, love, grow, and develop. And you deserve that. You deserve to be connected with people who value you, who support you, who celebrate you. And just because you don't have it now doesn't mean you will never have it ever. It just takes time to develop. But that's it for this week's episode. C's 2 cents is obviously, I want you to connect with your community this week. I want you to give them a call. I want you to send a text message and let them know that you value them in your life. Because I think that's another part that we forget too, is that we take our community for granted and we forget to let them know how much we appreciate them. And so just show some appreciation to the people that you are in community with. Let them know that you love them. And yeah, you can take my advice or not. That is just my 2 cents. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. If you like anything that you heard, like I said at the beginning of the episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Follow us with whether you're listening or watching us. Make sure you're connected with us on social media, on Instagram, and on TikTok. And thanks so much for listening, and go conquer your week.